When it comes to first dates, everyone wants to leave a good impression. You plan what to wear, consider the venue, rehearse stories, and even think through your smile. But almost no one stops to think about what not to do. Because the biggest attraction killers are rarely loud or dramatic. They aren't "don't show up in a chicken suit," obviously. They are subtle, almost invisible in the moment, but over the course of a dinner or a coffee, they crash connection like a power outage. Understanding these isn't about manipulation. It's about self-awareness. It's about recognizing how your behavior lands in another person's experience, sometimes without you even realizing it. If you avoid these patterns, your dates will feel easier, more natural, and you'll be perceived as confident rather than needy or chaotic. So let's explore the things you should never do on a first date if you want to create genuine attraction. One of the biggest attraction killers on a first date is dominating the conversation. Not talking enough can feel awkward, but talking too much feels like emotional smothering. There's a difference between sharing your world and leaving no space for hers. Attraction isn't a monologue, it's a dance. Imagine you walk into a room and the first person you meet starts talking about themselves without pause. Their voice is warm, their stories are interesting, but there's no rhythm, no invitation for you to step in. After a while, even if you're interested, you start tuning out. That's what happens when one person monopolizes a date. It signals insecurity, a need to fill silence at any cost. It communicates, even unconsciously, "I need you to pay attention to me." But contrast that with someone who balances sharing with curiosity, someone who asks a question, listens, pauses, and then responds. That person feels confident and emotionally accessible. Conversation rhythm matters more than content. When you talk too much, you prevent the relational gap that allows mutual attraction to build. You don't have to be quiet, but you do have to share the stage. Another instant attraction killer is checking your phone during the date. It doesn't matter if it's a quick check or a just-in-case glance. The moment you look down, you communicate that something else might be more important than the person in front of you. Humans are wired to read attention as value. When your eyes and body are oriented toward someone, it signals presence and priority. When they drift toward a screen, it signals distraction and deprioritization. Even subtle notifications, a vibration in your pocket, a screen lighting up, can pull your attention out of the moment. Some people think they're being polite by letting notifications stay on, or by quickly checking a message they just heard come in. But attraction doesn't operate that way. It's not about intent. It's about where your mind actually is. If your date notices your phone more than your eye contact, they'll feel undervalued, and you don't have to be perfect forever. Just putting the phone away, off the table, face down, out of sight, makes a massive difference in how present you feel and how valued your date feels. A related but distinct first date mistake is interrupting or finishing your date's sentences. On the surface, it seems small. You might think you're being helpful. Maybe it feels like you're anticipating their thoughts or trying to build rapport. But cutting someone off, even with good intentions, communicates something deeper. You think you know better than they do. It implies that your interpretation of their experience is more valid than theirs. In terms of attraction, that's poison. Attraction thrives on being understood, not overridden. Let someone complete their thought. Let silence exist between ideas. These pauses are not threatening when you're calm. In fact, they can feel inviting. People want to be heard, and that means letting them speak fully without intervening. When you interrupt, you disrupt the emotional flow of the conversation. Attraction grows in that emotional flow, not in forced connection. Oversharing about your future plans, especially when it involves marriage, kids, or life plans, too early is another powerful attraction killer. There's a difference between having goals and projecting them onto a fast-forming connection. When someone mentions marriage or children on a first date without any context, the date may feel like they're being evaluated for suitability rather than being met as a person. You don't owe your life plan to someone you've just met. Instead, share values and intentions at a pace that feels natural rather than fast-tracked. This signals emotional maturity, not avoidance. Another often underestimated attraction killer is comparing your date to people in your social circle immediately. Statements like, "Wow, you're nothing like my ex," or "You're way more interesting than my friends," may sound complimentary, but they put your date in a comparative frame. Comparisons, even positive ones, signal that your date is being measured rather than experienced for who they are. Attraction grows when someone feels uniquely appreciated, not evaluated against everyone else you've known. Speaking in cliches or scripted lines, even well-meaning ones like, "We were meant to meet," or "It felt like fate," can also kill attraction because it feels generic. First dates are about uniqueness. The human brain craves novelty and social connection. Saying something that feels like it could have been copied from a self-help book, a dating article, or a rom-com script activates skepticism, not warmth. Authenticity trumps polish in human connection. It's better to say something honest and imperfect than something clever and predictable. Another instant attraction killer on a first date is oversharing emotional baggage too early. There's a difference between authenticity and emotional dumping. Sharing depth is valuable, but timing matters. If your emotional history overwhelms the present moment, for example, relaying intense personal trauma, dumping burdening emotional wounds, or unloading unresolved pain, it shifts the dynamic from exploration to therapy. A first date is about mutual discovery, not emotional excavation. Emotional expression enriches connection when it's paced and contextually safe, not when it dominates the conversation without foundation. Interrupting your date to correct them, especially about facts, opinions, or perceptions, is another subtle attraction killer. People don't come to a date for corrections. They come for engagement. You can disagree without invalidating someone. The way you disagree matters. If you correct someone's perspective with condescension, it signals dominance rather than care. If you question gently and explore differences together, it signals curiosity rather than judgment. Humans are drawn to warmth, not intellectual competition on a first meeting. Discussing religion, politics, or divisive social issues without sensitivity is another common first date mistake. These topics are not inherently toxic, but they require a foundation of mutual respect before they can be navigated healthily. Jumping into heated debates on a first date can signal conflict rather than connection. If you choose to approach these topics, do so with curiosity and respect rather than assertiveness and certainty. One especially underrated attraction killer is making assumptions about your date's intentions. Sprinkling statements like, "Oh, you're probably just here for fun, right?" Or, "I assume you want something serious," can feel like you are trying to define the relationship before it even begins. It puts pressure on the interaction and takes agency away from your date. Attraction thrives in openness, not assumption. Another instantaneous attraction killer, and one that almost everyone overlooks, is laughing reactively rather than responsively. Some people laugh even when they aren't fully engaged, just to appear agreeable or nice. But laughter that doesn't come from genuine connection feels hollow and inauthentic. People feel this on a neurological level. Brains are wired to detect congruence between emotional experience and social expression. Respond with genuine mirth when something truly moves you. Authenticity nurtures attraction. Some people believe vulnerability must be dramatic or deeply emotional to be meaningful. In fact, the most connective vulnerability is everyday vulnerability, admitting curiosity, uncertainty, and honest perception in real time. "I don't know much about that. Tell me more." Or, "That's new to me. I'm curious what that feels like," are small admissions of vulnerability that create shared emotional ground. Many people unknowingly sabotage attraction by apologizing excessively on first dates. Apologies for small things, taking a sip of water, choosing a seat, pausing to think, signal discomfort with your own presence. Politeness is attractive. Chronic self-minimization is not. When you apologize for existing, you ask the other person to reassure you. That shifts the emotional labor onto them. Confidence isn't loud. It's the quiet assumption that you're allowed to take up space without permission. When you stop apologizing for harmless things, your presence becomes grounded rather than tentative. Another subtle killer is over-explaining yourself. When you justify every opinion, clarify every thought multiple times, or defend harmless preferences, it communicates uncertainty. Over-explaining often comes from a fear of being misunderstood or judged, but it actually creates the impression that you don't trust your own perspective. Attraction responds to clarity. You can express nuance without self-defense. Saying, "I enjoy this," is stronger than "I enjoy this, but I know it's not for everyone, and I don't mean it like that, and maybe I'm wrong." Confidence lies in calm expression, not excessive qualification. Another common mistake is turning the date into a performance of agreement. Some people avoid expressing disagreement to keep things smooth, but constant agreement feels inauthentic. You don't need to argue, but you also don't need to erase your perspective. Attraction grows when two people feel free to be real without fear of rejection. Calm, respectful differences are often more attractive than perfect alignment. One of the most overlooked attraction killers is treating silence as a failure. Silence isn't awkward unless you panic in it. Comfortable silence signals emotional ease and maturity. When someone can sit quietly without rushing to fill space, it communicates confidence and presence. Many people rush to talk because silence triggers anxiety, but that anxiety is what feels uncomfortable, not the silence itself. Letting moments breathe allows connection to deepen naturally. Another subtle killer is watching your date's reactions too closely. If you constantly scan their face for approval, did they like that? Are they bored? Did I mess up? You create a self-conscious energy. Attraction thrives when attention flows outward, not inward. When you're genuinely engaged in the conversation rather than monitoring reactions, you become more relaxed, expressive, and present, all of which are deeply attractive. Another instant attraction killer is over-validating. While validation is important, excessive reassurance or constant agreement can feel hollow. Saying, "I totally get that," to everything your date says can feel performative rather than genuine. Attraction grows when validation feels specific and earned, not automatic. Instead of blanket agreement, reflect thoughtfully. Show that you're actually processing what they're saying. Depth beats politeness every time. Another silent killer is rehearsing responses instead of listening. If you're already preparing what to say next while your date is speaking, you're not present. Your responses may be clever, but they won't feel connected. True listening creates resonance. Resonance creates attraction. When you avoid these subtle killers, you don't become more impressive. You become more real. And real connection is what people are actually looking for, whether they realize it or not.